If you want to pass the GED Social Studies exam, you need to know what to study. When you know what you'll see on the test, you can study more efficiently. In this video, I'll lay out exactly what you need to know about world history and geography to score 145 on the GED Social Studies test and achieve your goal. This is the fifth and final video where I'm going over what you need to know to pass the GED Social Studies exam. In the first video, we talked about the social studies practices or skills you need to be able to apply to pass the test. In the second and third videos, we went over the big ideas and vocabulary from US civics, government, and history. In the fourth video, we reviewed the big concepts in economics. And in this video, we'll be discussing some of the bigger ideas and vocabulary concepts that you'll need from world history and geography. Having a better idea of what you need to know can help you focus in on those best resources for you while you study. This video will be as quick of an overview as I can do of these terms, but I hope it will be a good place for you to start with your studies. I've mentioned a few times that the GED website is not very specific about the content that appears on the GED Social Studies exam. They stress more the skills and competencies that you need surrounding reading and critical thinking, like I covered in video 1 of this series. And as we've also covered, you don't need to memorize any names or dates to do well on this test. You will just be reading questions and responding to passages only. However, it's definitely helpful to have an idea of what the passages you will be reading are about. And as always for history, I recommend that you try to make a general timeline in your mind so that you know when an event in general happened. What I'll be sharing with you today is adapted from the Kaplan GED Prep Manual, which I will link below. I do recommend that you either purchase it or borrow it from your local library so you can read more in depth on what we're going to talk about. And also so that you can have some access to practice questions related to these readings. According to the Kaplan Manual, questions about world history and geography are only about 15% of the test. That's not a very big portion, but it could be the difference between success and failure. And of course, every little bit of preparation helps. We'll be discussing today 5 major subtopics: ancient civilizations and early nation states, wars and revolutions, and humanity's relationship to the environment and natural resources. First, let's talk about ancient civilizations and early nation states. One big idea that you should know is that early civilizations often formed around a body of water. That helped them to provide a consistent food source for their growing population. Egypt is a good example. They took advantage of the fertile ground surrounding the Nile River, and they also developed irrigation systems to grow food. Another example is the Sumerian city-states in the Fertile Crescent. This is a little northeast of Egypt. They were also using flood control and irrigation to grow crops around 5000 BCE, around the same time as Egypt. These two civilizations both left records of their accomplishments because they both developed systems of writing. Because they have those systems of writing, their ideas have really endured through to today. For example, you may have heard the phrase "an eye for an eye." That comes from Hammurabi's code. Hammurabi was a Babylonian king. This code is remembered as one of the first examples of codifying laws and setting them out so that everyone knew what they were and could follow them. There are other ancient civilizations who also left behind ideas about governance that still influence us today. In the ancient Greek city-state of Athens, all citizens could vote in what we know as the first political democracy. Of course, only free men were considered citizens, not women or the many enslaved people in Athens. Moving forward a little bit into history, the ancient Greeks were followed by the Romans. Their system of governance also still influences us today in the United States. For example, wealthy Roman citizens elected a governing Senate body, and individuals accused of a crime were considered innocent until proven guilty. The Romans expanded by conquering the lands around the Mediterranean Sea as far north as England and east into China. The Roman Empire's legacy is strong infrastructure. Ancient Rome had good schools, roads, bridges, hospitals, tax collection, and an army. There were also large ancient civilizations in Central and South America. The Maya also developed a system of writing which recorded their accomplishments in mathematics and astronomy. The Inca Empire had a sophisticated governing system and a strong network of roads and bridges. And the Aztecs also developed a writing system, a calendar, and had innovative farming practices. Part 2, we're going to move away from ancient civilizations and start talking about the Middle Ages. This was a period between 500 and 1500 AD, during which the Roman Empire weakened and feudalism arose in Europe. Feudalism is a system where kings grant nobles land, and nobles allow peasant farmers to live and work on their land. Peasants paid taxes to the nobles, and nobles paid taxes to the king. And knights loyal to the nobles protected the land and its occupants. This system helped establish political boundaries that led to less open fighting over territory. During this time, the religion of Islam was founded by followers of the Prophet Muhammad and expanded into large areas of the Middle East, Northern Africa, Spain, Persia, and India. In the late Middle Ages, Christians and followers of Islam fought over the holy city of Jerusalem in a series of wars called the Crusades. During the Crusades, European trade with the Middle East and as far as China expanded, which led to the growth of cities, which led to the fall of feudalism. Toward the end of the Middle Ages, European nations led by monarchs began to form by combining the territory of smaller rulers, including England, France, and Spain. Between 1300 and 1600, the Renaissance swept Europe. This was a period of growth in arts, education, and science. Around 1500, reformers criticizing the Catholic Church formed new Protestant churches that did not follow the Catholic Pope in what was called the Reformation. Quick pause here. If this review is helping you study for the GED exam, take a second to click the like button for me. That really does help support this channel by letting YouTube know that this is a good resource. And make sure to subscribe so you don't miss my next series on the GED science exam. Thanks, and back to world history. Part 3, let's talk specifically about revolutions. Political revolutions occur when people are not happy about their conditions related to their system of governance in their country. Many notable political revolutions occurred in the period starting towards the end of the 1700s through the beginning of the 1800s. Most notably, the American Revolution led to British colonists in North America declaring themselves a sovereign nation, the United States of America. Soon after, French citizens revolted against absolute rule by their monarch to establish a lawmaking body to represent the people. In the early 1800s, other colonies revolted against European colonial rule, including Haiti, Mexico, and many other countries in South America. At the same time as all of these political revolutions, a different kind of revolution was occurring. The Industrial Revolution was creating huge social changes, with the introduction of new equipment to mass produce goods in factories, steam engines, and ultimately electricity. Cities grew as people moved to go work in factories, which created huge material changes in how people were living. This allowed for increased wealth and some degree of social mobility, but factory jobs were often dangerous, cities were crowded, and pollution became a big problem. Part 4, during the first half of the 20th century, or the 1900s, there were two major world wars. The First World War began in 1914, and it devastated Europe over the course of 4 years. Millions of people died before the Treaty of Versailles was signed in 1918. Germany was blamed for this war and made to pay reparations to the Allied powers. That's England, France, Russia, Serbia, and the United States. Towards the end of and in the years following World War I, revolution in Russia led to the rise of the Soviet Union and a communist state. The stock market crashed in the United States in 1929, which started the Great Depression. These extreme economic difficulties affected many countries. In Germany, Adolf Hitler appealed to nationalism and promised to put starving people in Germany back to work. He scapegoated Jewish people and other groups for the economic and political trouble that Germany was having, and he imprisoned and killed millions of people in what is now called the Holocaust. World War II began as Hitler sought to expand into other European countries. England and France ultimately declared war on Germany when Hitler expanded into Poland in 1939. The United States and other countries joined England and France as the Allied powers, and Italy and Japan joined Germany as the Axis powers. The war ended when the United States dropped 2 atomic bombs on Japan, killing almost 250,000 citizens. This remains the only use of atomic bombs in armed conflict, though the Soviet Union did race to build its own nuclear arsenal to match the United States in the years following World War II, known as the Cold War. The Cold War came to an end and the Soviet Union split into 15 different states in 1991, and those former Soviet states, as well as many other countries around the world, have struggled to establish democracy. And finally, part 5. Growing human populations have played a huge role in altering many geographic regions. As we discussed regarding ancient civilizations, people often settle in locations where there are favorable conditions. Social, political, economic, and geographic factors can cause people to migrate when conditions become unfavorable. Manufacturing, urbanization, and commercial agriculture have led to air, water, and soil pollution and a changing climate. In light of this, conservation efforts seek to use natural resources like like soil, plant and animal life, and mineral resources carefully. This involves sustainable use of resources or using resources in a manner that they won't run out. Some resources are renewable, like wind and solar power. Others are non-renewable, like coal, copper, iron, natural gas. These are resources that we can use but will not be replaced once we use them. Furthermore, fossil fuels like coal, gas, and oil can cause a great deal of pollution that impacts other natural resources. We also need to consider the health and sustainability of the complex natural ecosystems that make our planet a place where plants, animals, and humans can live. The conservation and allocation of natural resources can become really complicated when resources are scarce. For example, what happens when there's not enough water resources for agriculture, drinking water, wildlife, and industrial needs? Water supplies and other natural resources can cross political boundaries with different needs and interests. These are complicated issues that need creative, collaborative solutions. Moving forward, nations will need to work together to conserve the resources available and to move toward cleaner and more sustainable sources of energy. Okay, so those are some of the world history and geography ideas that might appear on the GED Social Studies test. Obviously, this quick overview left out a lot of detail and nuance that's really important to having a true understanding of world history and geography. Not least of which because I just tried to give an overview of 7,000 years of world history in just a few short minutes. I strongly encourage you to take some time to learn more about world history. Again, you don't need to memorize names or dates, but it is really helpful to have a handle on some of these big ideas. I really recommend the World History series by Crash Course, and I will link that below. I also always recommend that you practice the kinds of questions that you will see on the test. I'll link the Kaplan GED prep manual if you are interested in having some practice opportunities. On this channel, I make videos about how to study more effectively so that you can achieve your goals. And in the coming weeks, I will be starting my 4th and final GED subject series on science. So please subscribe if you'd like to learn more. If you're just starting to think about studying for the GED exams, you can also check out my video about how to start that process. Or if you're a little deeper in, please check out my playlist about what you need to know to study for the math and RLA exams. If this video is helpful to you, please press the like button so that YouTube will know that this is a good resource. Thank you as always for watching, and until next time, happy studying.